Okay.
and and now maybe some people will show up and maybe they won't, and maybe we'll have to have the last 5 minutes of conversation all over again. I don't know. Um,
Mm. Well, I'm happy to toss up what if I can find my uh cause loop diagram that Gemini generated for me, and one I've been working on separately.
okay,
Um,
love to see it.
so let me see if I can't find it here. Let's see. Go to share somewhere. Uh, I wish I could. I wish I was more Zoom. Oh, here we are. Zoom. I wish I was more familiar with.
We're
Oops.
all learning. Some of us just started earlier than
Zoom.
others.
Zoom is just something I feel like. Come on. Here, it just feels like it shouldn't be this. Shouldn't be this difficult here. Um,
Uh,
Good grief. Okay. I want to share it. Maybe this
it's
is.
set up so that you can share.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to find a way to do that.
There should be a green button at
I,
the bottom of the screen that
yeah,
says share.
I see the green button. Then it takes me into uh, whiteboard, docs, and notes, and
It should allow
uh,
you to share either a screen or one of your open windows.
so maybe I have to have the maybe I need to have the document open first.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Okay, all right. Well, that's part of this learning here. Let me get it. May see if I can't do that here. And I have been playing around with the brain a little bit,
Oh, okay.
and I found that to be quite interesting. Okay, we're a little some progress coming. Yeah, little progress. Okay. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay. Okay, great. Okay.
Yep,
Does it show up here? Let's see.
I got it.
Okay. Ah,
Now
okay.
it's bigger.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely changed. Uh, Gemini didn't exactly create this, but it gave me some tips along the way.
Okay.
So I've been interacting with Gemini and Perplexity and couple of, I guess, yeah, Copilot. Copilot's, yeah, I'm not impressed. But so gradually I've added more information to this a little model. And whoops, need to I'm pretty happy with the model at this point and beginning to add more net logo code to actually simulate it.
Okay.
and I've had a couple things going fairly well. So this is a basic model for any kind of evolutionary system, be it artificial, biological, natural, or social. And it's a mess, but I guess evolution itself is a mess.
Yeah, usually.
So we kind of start
There's
out.
Bruce. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
Okay, let's see if I can get my screen. There we are. Hey,
Hello, Bruce.
and it's had a busy week this week, huh, Gene?
Um, yes, except
Yeah,
for yesterday. I didn't post anything yesterday. I was, but David is going through his model that he's been working on.
Oh, okay, great.
So,
You
Bruce,
you see
this is a
it?
I do.
Okay.
this
Sure.
is a causal loop diagram for evolutionary systems
Mhm.
that I've been working on for some time, and more recently working with Gemini to flesh it out a little bit. And the intent is to then take this um, and turn it into net logo code to simulate evolution for natural, biological, artificial, and social systems.
Uh-huh.
So this is sort of an abstract view of evolution or an evolutionary system.
Yep. Process,
So
retention.
so
Yep.
how does one go about understanding the model?
That is a good question, Jane. It would be the first one asked.
But
Yeah, I actually need to to find a way to put it in text. Now, what the causal loop diagram that Gemini generated for me for evolutionary systems, I could take that and generate a narrative about it, and then turn that narrative through uh, Notebook LM into a podcast.
right.
And I thought that worked out quite well. This is a bit more. This is a little bit. This is a lot more complex than the model generated by Gemini. But basically, evolution can either be planned or unplanned,
Okay.
or intentional or unintentional. For example, we have been corn or dogs are examples of intentional evolution
Mhm.
where we've actually gone in and we've fiddled with things, and we'll probably fiddle a lot more going forward with things. Um, and so that affects how we begin to propagate or and vary whatever it is that's being evolved. If it's unplanned, um, well, that's a good question because as one of my friends mentioned to me, gee, isn't biological evolution isn't that intelligent design? Well, that's a good question there too. So, but once we start to propagate an object, we can look. It'll perform. Well, we have some performance, and we can look at that performance. And then we have environmental selection based on some fitness criteria in the environment, laws of physics, laws of chemistry, that kind of thing. And we actually have some selection. So the red and the blue represent basically limits to growth. It's a typical limits to growth or limits to success archetype. And so propagation with variation just generates more and more. It's a positive feedback loop. And selection is a negative feedback loop to keep winnowing out the losers or the unfit
Mhm.
or the less fit. And if performance is seriously bad, it could go extinct.
Okay.
If performance is bad, but maybe not quite to the level of going extinct, it might collapse. And all systems eventually will collapse. Now, they might recover like a company going through bankruptcy might recover, um, and live for a short time and then die out later, or they might recover and go on and do quite well. Um, if it collapses, it might continue to go up and restart and reproduce with variation again, or we might have a loop that goes out and says, okay, from an artificial system, that collapsed, but we need to plan a new approach and tweak something and then push that back through the loop again. You have external environmental factors that affect the propagation as well. So there's all sorts of feedback going on between entities and the environment. Um, there's other loops here that you could also generate a new species, or you could bifurcate. And you'll see, for example, over a period of time, many religions have bifurcated. There's all sorts of various types of religions that have bifurcated, split off from the mothership, so to speak, and not just religion, but companies. Um, in terms of like a social organization, like a company, uh, that too can spin off a new type of company. 100 years ago, we didn't have LLCs, we didn't have major corporations, and those have all kind of split off and developed along different lines. So that's kind of it. There's other little loops in here, and it definitely needs a better explanation than what I just provided. But that's the
Well,
general idea.
why are there red lines, blue lines, and green lines?
Uh, just for hopefully illustration. Uh, um, so the red and the blue are just this. This is the red and the blue generate. I mean, these are these two loops here represent the limits to growth archetype, which is
Okay,
what I
okay.
started with. So the red and the blue just are on a screen. It just helps in seeing where the loops are rather than anything else. It means there's nothing in the color other than helping see the loop.
Okay.
All black would be a little crazy. So
And
there's that. So then I've tried to um, what I want to add is some definitions for each of these terms, and then explain each of the loops in text. And then my next step then is to complete the NetLogo code.
so something that might be useful is to go ahead and take a screenshot of this, everything that's on this page,
Uh-huh.
turn it into a JPEG file, give it to one of the LLMs and say, describe this model. Um, that's the extent of the command. Describe this
Okay.
model. Okay.
Okay. I'll try that.
And then you could also say, write me a story about this model.
I could do that. It's a good idea.
Um, I do every time somebody sends me one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because and see if the extent to which its interpretation is consistent with yours.
Uh-huh.
Right? And you could, I don't know, hold on, let me check. I don't want to tell you to do this before I find out if it works or not.
Oh, well, I can always try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It wouldn't be the first time I've tried something that failed. Bruce, what happened to your neck? You something around your?
Yeah, it's freezing in here. My wife likes the air conditioning up pretty high,
Oh,
so it's just a hood.
oh, I see. Oh, I see. I see. Okay. So
It won't, Gemini won't create a podcast about the model.
right. I found that to be true, and I used Notebook LM to do that.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
may be other.
if you load the JPEG into Notebook LM, it might create a podcast about the model. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll continue to play with it. But this is kind of where I am.
It's it's I just continue to find that additional perspectives sort of just move the understanding needle a little bit more and more. And it just
Absolutely, absolutely right.
because if if I if I spend time developing a model of everything that I think is not in the model, all right, I think things that aren't actually there.
Right.
I I think things in the white spaces, and
Yeah.
just because of spending so much time with it and thinking about it, um, it's like describing one of my models to somebody and having them respond with, "You think what?"
Yeah, I think as someone said, all models are wrong, but some are useful.
Uh, and some of them just need a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good. Glad to see it's progressing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see how I can get out of this now.
So I've got questions about
Oh,
this, but they're
okay.
very basic questions. Can you suggest a resource to learn more about causal loop diagrams? Because I'm questioning some things about how are these things variables versus stores, and where is the store if all of the are we assuming there's a store that all of these things are acting upon?
Um, well, I guess one source. Well, Gene must have all kinds of sources,
I'm looking for a source.
but one source would be Peter Senge's.
Okay.
The fifth discipline.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've got that. I haven't gotten in, haven't delved into it yet.
Yeah, the fifth discipline field book gives a little bit more detail, and that's certainly one source.
Great.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, one may be all I can do at a time.
I'm sorry.
Say one may be all I can do at a
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. The fifth discipline field book, it's what 300 or 400 pages of
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, I'm too old to. I'll never finish this before I die.
yeah, right.
And
Yeah, I've got a couple of those open and working through a page or two at a time.
yeah.
So
Well, and that's the other thing is I think we're specializing more and more because we're running out of time, and
right.
we can't we can't do everything. We can't
Yeah.
really. I can't. I don't want to. I don't even want to look at a book anymore because I don't have time to read it and do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, except that there's so much to learn from the way someone writes,
I know. I know.
right? So yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm reading some Bateson right now, uh, Nora, and I can get through about 4 paragraphs
Uh-huh.
before I have to put it down because there are just so many thoughts in it,
Right.
and I have to work through them. So yeah, thank
so
you,
I just posted a link in the chat too.
thank you.
I
Also,
a very short document by George Richardson called Causal Loop Diagrams Revisited.
Huh.
Okay.
It's ancient, though extremely relevant
Yeah.
and very short.
Yeah, I have absolutely no use for people being unhappy that apps haven't been updated in a year or two, because if they work, they don't need to be updated.
Oh
Mm.
yeah, yeah. This is,
So if this is a paper that's that's 10 years old and was good at describing the basics of something, why would you have to change it?
this was more like 25 years old.
It's the same point.
Yeah.
Kind of like Euclid's elements,
Yes, yes.
Pythagorean theorem. It was good enough. Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I have to
So
take a look. That name sounds really familiar.
what name?
George Richardson?
Yeah,
Oh,
he wrote several books. He taught um, at Albany State in New York for years. He's retired now.
I think I had a TA, not a TA, a floor person when I was in college. His name was George Richardson. I'm not sure about the P.
mm. Well, these are some definitions that of the elements in the causal diagram.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. A
Yeah,
little time to think about how it fits together, and
right.
the
So,
way that I conceptualize
right,
what I'm seeing is,
exactly. So then I'm trying to gonna expand on this, but this was generated by Gemini and
oh, okay.
put together, and then once I'm happy with all of this,
Yep,
then I'll go back to my net logo software.
yep, okay.
So that that that's
Uh,
that's kind of where I am at this point. So while it doesn't look like much, it's boy, it's a long ways from where I started from.
Great.
So how to there we go.
where are we going now?
Okay, Gene,
Lost.
back to you.
Uh, back to me. Well, you're still sharing your screen.
Oh, okay, I see a stop share. There we go.
Oh, okay. Because I thought we were going somewhere else, and
Oh,
I lost track. So
yeah, that's
that's
quite all
okay.
right.
So, um, what David and I were talking about, because David showed up early, he's really anxious to be here. So that that through some trial and learnings, I guess, I finally realized that a lot of the models that I used to create were biased based upon what I wanted them to represent. So that I would develop a model of a failed tariff implementation because I wanted the model to explicitly depict something. And what I figured out that is that when I create the models with Gemini, I simply want to create a model about how tariffs work, which is not biased in any particular direction. And once it creates the model, then I go ahead and I interrogate it in terms of what if, what happens if this, or what happens if that, to give me a sense or to give me something that I can work with that I could ask to go in multiple different directions as opposed to starting out with a model that's already biased in a particular direction.
Right. Mhm.
and which never made sense in the past because I never had something that I could interrogate a model with. Because I always wanted the model to depict something in particular, which was the reason for developing the model to begin with. Which, it was just one of those, oh, well, that makes sense. Um,
So have you tried that at all, Gene? Or is
yeah,
that just off from today?
repeatedly. I mean, the one that I posted this morning, I had it create me a model of society. That was it. I just said, create me a model of society.
Mhm.
And then I spent, I don't know, probably an hour and a half asking it questions about certain things. Well, okay, if this happens, how does it ripple through the model? What are the implications of this as it ripples through the model? And in that particular one, there were um, a number of variables in the model which there were two or three things that influenced this element, but it didn't influence anything else. And I would say, well, seems as though it would make sense for this element to actually have an influence on something else. What might that be? And it'd give me a couple of things, and I'd say, okay, add them to the model. And we went back and forth like this for quite a while until the model looked like it made sense. And then I did a bunch of interrogations to get a better sense of how it works. Because if trying to say, if you change this, how does it ripple through the model? And trying to follow all of, I mean, I think the model had 57 loops in it. All right. I mean, uh,
So,
it
so,
can keep track of them, but I can't.
so one question that jumps out at that is if you take a look at the whole model and you compare it to the failed model, is there a lot of crossover? So it's sort of a bias question. Were you actually biased or were you actually trimming?
I don't know. In other words, I had not
Yeah. Mhm.
compared a model of how tariffs work to a, a model of failed tariff implementation.
Right. It's just sort of a
Okay.
question that comes up, as to how the AI deals with the question you're asking almost. Because one would think that, that would be the failed would be a subset of the total. But I wonder if the way the question is asked actually causes it to come up with a different answer.
So I
I'll
could
have to,
say, I probably could ask it,
I'll have to go
what
back and see
would
if time
what
to
would
take a
be
look.
the difference if
Yeah,
I ask you to develop me a model about how tariffs work or a failed tariff implementation? What would the difference be between the two models?
right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I,
It's just,
day by day, I begin to realize more and more how stupid I am and how smart Gemini actually is. So they say that an overuse of LLMs makes people stupider, and I don't. Well, for the most part, maybe that's true. Okay, if people go there and ask you questions and just read the answers and believe it and don't actually think through it to actually learn something from the interaction. Though, if it gives you things that you ponder and reflect on, I don't think that it dumbs you down at all.
I
right.
agree.
Though it continues to show me how much I don't know.
I think
Or,
I think that's better than stupider.
shows me how much I don't know that I don't know.
Yep.
That's just
It's true for everyone. We're all faced with major limitations on the amount of information we can process.
Yeah.
Whereas supercomputers and access to the world's libraries can actually do so much more.
Yeah, right. Similarly, though, I don't think that's smarter.
No, I agree. No, in fact, we don't know what intelligence really is.
That's the anthropomorphization,
Exactly.
actually,
What
right?
is intelligence? Yeah. Yeah.
I
Just
can't say
because,
we'll never get there, but I'm still pretty sure we're not there yet.
yeah. 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 I'm with Jane that if you, it's like anything else on the internet or the whatever, any media. If you just look at it at face value and don't reflect on it, you don't try and learn from it, you don't think
Mhm.
about it, then yeah.
So I was terribly upset because the Gemini app on my Android phone wouldn't load an HTML file. So I had to put the HTML file in a text editor and then paste it into Gemini, which got old after two or three times. And then a couple of days ago, all of a sudden I said, duh, why don't I skip the app and just go use Gemini through the internet? And now it works fine on my phone. I mean, it's just
Oh,
little things, you know. Of course,
yeah. On my
there seems to be something missing in the web browser on on my Android phone because it won't let me recurve an edge to select
oh.
it and recurve it. That piece, and I fought with it on my phone for 3 or 4 days trying to get it to do that because I thought it was broken. And then I went and tried it on my laptop and found out it wasn't broken. It's the phone that screwed up.
Well, the phone has definite limitations, memory,
Well,
speed, display
well,
capability. Um, so yeah, the internet.
one of them new phones that opens up like this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a fan of the idea of a folding phone. It's not going to weigh any less. It's not going to take up any less physical space. It's just another feature that can break.
Yeah, I started taking my laptop to the coffee shop to my phone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very happy with my laptop.
So what's Bruce working on?
Uh, this week looks like I'm going to be doing a consulting gig next month.
Good,
Oh,
So,
great.
I've been sort of stuck doing some of the prep work for that, getting approved by the company, et cetera, et cetera.
Uh-huh.
So this week has been a little bit less organized on this, though I did sort of have a little breakthrough in describing some of the issues with systems engineering that I
Uh-huh.
see. So looking to try to get something that's publishable there and get it up on LinkedIn and see who wants to beat me up about that.
Well, what's the gig, Bruce?
There's a company that's in the same industry that I spent most of my life in that
Uh-huh.
is trying to get up to the 1990s.
Ah, what?
Well, yeah, systems engineering is not as dispersed, especially in commercial companies,
Uh-huh.
as you might think from its application in DoD in the mill aero areas, because there's so much overhead in that particular process that most commercial companies can't afford to do it. So, some of them are much more slowly coming up to the idea that they need to be able to formulate broad architectures and use them to generate platforms. Essentially, the car companies figured that out in the 90s. Uh, but again, it hasn't distributed to a lot of other, smaller scope enterprises.
Okay.
So I have an ex boss that's trying to implement it for an international company at the moment, and we're going to try to redo some things that we did back in the early 2000s.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, hello, Randall.
Hey, Rand.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
Hello. Well, that's okay. We're still here.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
Um,
Happy July 1st, by the way.
well, we just been talking about this and that and what David's been working on and what I was working on. And Bruce is now frozen. I don't know what happened to Bruce.
Oh,
And we were waiting for you to show up. So, because we were running out of things to talk about. So we're glad you're here.
oh, great.
Have you been working on something the past week? Interesting?
Uh, yeah, well, I suppose. Nothing I can actually show. I can talk about it. So I've been playing around with using a llama, and I've been using llama 3.3, 70 billion parameters, um, which is, and I have it running locally on my Mac, which actually works pretty well. And exploring the idea of relational fields. So I asked it to reflect on and discuss the concept of relational fields. All right. So this is a handful, right? Relational fields from which emerge plural media of existential spaces composed of attractors in relation, constraining the certainty of being or non-being. In relational fields, attractors in relation present as being and become, emerge, compose, condense as matter and energy together with non-being. Being and non-being are therefore a unity of becoming. The how of this exists is without memory and therefore beyond knowledge.
Wow.
I would have to take the question and feed it to someone and have it explain me the question.
Yeah, well, it comes back was what a fascinating concept to explore. Blah blah blah. Suggests that existence is not solely defined by the presence or absence of entities, being or non-being, but rather by the relationships between them. Relationships give rise to a complex web of interactions, which in turn create emergent properties and patterns. Resonates with philosophical and scientific theories such as process philosophy, systems theory, and quantum mechanics. So
is that all it took? It must have been longer than that.
Oh no, yeah, it's much longer.
Okay.
It continues.
Okay.
Anyway, this kind of is part of sort of a larger study I'm working on, which is a paper on a meta ontology for system science. Don't get me started on that, but hopefully that'll come out later this year. So this is just this is a teaser.
So what was it that got you headed down this path?
This was a 3 a.m. mindstorm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I'm sorely afflicted by these. Yeah. So the other day I was thinking, it just popped into my mind, the idea of relational spaces, and so I was actually thinking, it was weird. My wife was talking to me about worms in the garden, right? And sort of struck me that soil is a relational space, and it has all these constraints for living in it, right? So anyway, that just sort of snowballed.
So, okay, so in a short form that I can, what's a relational space?
It's a space where relationships emerge.
Oh, okay.
So that would be
So,
almost
so the only thing that isn't a relational space is something that's completely devoid of anything.
Yes, right.
Okay.
So that would be a non-relational space, which is non-being. Although it could be argued that that's impossible.
so it's
I was
kind of
about to do
a closed system,
Yeah.
theoretically possible, but practically not.
Mm. So anyway, it, and then I asked it to discuss this in terms of category theory, which it did. And it gave me 3 different versions, which have different uses. Anyway, it's a work in progress.
Hmm.
So how do you find category theory? Useful, interesting?
I think it's interesting and useful. I've actually used it to try to constrain the responses that I get, sort of like it's sort of like Gene's use of a template, right?
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. I've used it a little bit to, in one instance, to model a wine bar.
Oh, interesting. You
You
mean
want
like,
to elaborate
yeah,
elaborate
can
on
you
that?
elaborate on that?
Uh, yeah, basically I trying to get a good definition of say any kind of a system through category theory or basic mathematical theory of any sort to basically describe a system.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd try that with category theory, and maybe I can show it next time. I'll dig out my notes and my diagrams and see if I can't run through it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I found it interesting in a way. The notion of a morphism, a relationship between a couple of objects. And so, like for example, you might have a wine steward who takes an order, being a morphism, from a customer. And then the wine steward might pour a glass of wine and hand it to a server. And there's another morphism.
Mm-hmm.
And then the server would hand it to the customer, and that's another morphism. And beginning to various
I hate it when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
David, you're hung up.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Yeah, I just had that happen a couple of minutes ago, so I assume that there's some dropouts with Zoom at this point.
There,
Mm.
we lost you again, David. We lost you now. Okay. So what is category theory?
I'm not sure I'm going to describe this very well. It's it's a way of sort of describing things in terms of categories. And there are a number of operations that you can perform in categories.
Okay, so
So a morphism would sort of modify that category in some fashion.
yeah,
so
a
I
morphism is like a relationship.
so
In
I've
Sorry, you
my
been
broke up.
understanding,
used
anyway.
I've been using the brain for years, and it has
Mm-hmm.
the ability to assign types and tags to thoughts. And I've used them and I've not used them, and it doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm totally inept at figuring out how to do them. And Jerry Mikulski has been using the brain for 29 years. He has over 1 million thoughts in it. It is the most beautifully curated piece of work I have ever seen because he can find anything in there in a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
mine look more like landfills, and I've only got a couple of thousand entries in them. And several times I have tried to understand an approach to figuring out how do you put this stuff in categories or assign types so that it's organized in a meaningful manner so that you can find things. And I'm having the same problem now that I'm using Get Recall. It's that I don't know where to put things.
Mm.
I put them someplace because they're in there, but then I can't figure out where I put them and I can't find them.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I'm actually I'm finding it quite useful in a number of ways. First off, for me, I'm using it a lot to help with processing natural language. So natural language is just immensely complex. It's highly dimensional, and sorting all that stuff out in any sort of methodical way is challenging without some kind of math, right? And category theory gives you some tools, mathematical tools for doing that. So you can formalize expressions, which could sort of apply in a consistent way to natural language expressions.
Interesting.
Say, yeah. Um, it actually is also used to study commonalities and patterns between different mathematical structures. So you can use it to navigate all different, a bunch of different fields of math. It abstracts details from the relationships and compositions between objects. So you can put things together and take things apart in sort of a structured way. And you can formalize that with axioms and sort of rules of the road. A lot of people, I think, argue about it because it's sort of like, it's sort of a Swiss Army knife, and it's like out of the frying pan and into the fire. But with it, at least I think in some constrained ways, it can be helpful. And actually, you could think of category theory as sort of a relational space. So trying to develop that idea a little bit further. So that's kind of where I am now. And it sort of reminds me of, like, I'm not sure how familiar you are with constructivism. I'm not an expert, like, in constructivist theory, which started kind of really gaining a lot of momentum in the educational world with Piaget, who basically thought, okay, this is how kids learn in a constructive way. So, we start with, some fundamental concepts, and you build on those and build on those. So it's kind of like that. And you can use it to compose ideas. So I'm sure I've totally mangled it.
No,
And
I
I
think
don't
that's
profess to be an expert at it, but I do
I'm not
find
sure
it
anyone,
useful.
not sure many people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me that category theory is kind of I mean, set theory is interesting. Category theory just seems to take it in a different direction. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and more complex and more over-encompassing. Like maybe in other words, maybe set theory is almost like a subset of category theory.
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other cool thing about that I learned using Llama 3.3. Yeah, I bet it will work with ChatGPT. Although I'm not sure how good it is at category theory. Is you can go right from writing a set of expressions in using category theory to functional programming. So I will have it write, you know, explain this using category theory, and then I'll say, do that with function, use that or represent that with functional programming, and it'll write out a code in functional programming. And I'll say, it's usually Haskell, and I don't know Haskell, so I said, okay, do that in Lisp. I happen to know Lisp, so so it very nicely does the programming for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. We definitely live in different times.
Yeah.
Well, you've given me a whole bunch of things to think about between now and the next meeting, because so I captured them all.
Yeah.
I'll go look them up.
Well, I'll give you one interesting example. It allows you to, or let me put it this way. There are ways to represent nuances of language. So for instance, and I'm going to use some technical terms from natural language processing, the concept of implicature. So implicature is when you say a word, you might be implying something, right? So when I use the word cur to describe a dog, and it's like the implication, it's a dirty, rotten mongrel, right? But that's not explicitly stated in the word, but you can represent words with implication using category theory. So, and it actually is like, it's like the word itself is a program which you can unpack functionally. So you could ask it, all right, find all the words in this document that have some unspoken implication, and then unpack them for me, please. So what are the hidden meanings in the?
Oh, okay.
And you could also use something like that for more tricky concepts like metaphor or humor. So like, how do you unpack the humor in this statement? Yeah. And so you can start to do that, I think. And these are things that AI is not yet good at. So that's one of the reasons I'm thinking, this might be fun to explore.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Well, we're early stage AI, as we all know. That it's gonna be amazing to see what it's like in 4 or 5 years. It's amazing.
It's only going to get better, although and more scary, I think.
Yeah. I mean, because basically, I think AI can begin to generate even better AI and AI models, and it generates this positive feedback loop that Ray Kurzweil's talked about so much. That
yeah. The other thing is, I think that well, hard to say, but I think the current foaminess with like this, these massive modeling, the massive hardware that they're using to create these models, eventually that's going to shift because the hardware is evolving as well.
Right.
So I think in 2 years, we're not going to need so much energy to generate these models, but
Right, right,
the argument is going to go, oh, we still need, to build these huge and huger data centers because it's become a Red Queen situation.
right.
And,
Yeah.
and some people are saying that this is the last year for Transformers.
What does
Because
that mean, Jane?
well, I think it says that the current n squared model, which is just exponential,
Right.
is simply not sustainable. So they're
Oh,
talking about what they say quadratics, which I don't understand either, but another approach to
uh-huh.
building the LLM
Oh, I
so
see. I see.
that it's not as computational intensive.
I see.
Something even better than what DeepSeek did in terms of what they
Yeah,
created
yeah,
with far less hardware and far less money.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, that's all kind of up in the air. Is like getting better performance. The kind of the current crop, and I think we could be near the end of it. Started with a couple of papers around the idea that more data is better, and there there are signs that there are limits to that. Like it doesn't make sense to add more and more data because you really don't get better performance out of it at some
Mhm.
point. And but what like DeepSeek and I think a couple other model creators have been doing is they're actually refining the data before they use it for training. So and that has started to produce better results. So it's like the first, I think the first go round was like, just get any data you can, throw it in there, and something good will come out.
Right.
Uh,
And there, and a lot of it's what came out of that. Some of it was garbage in, garbage out. Gradually, they started to training that, putting in new techniques for training, which were also energy intensive and time consuming. Um, but that sort of created a new layer of pre-training. And yeah, so anyway, it's a there's feedback cycles here,
Right.
and definitely learning. The other thing is a lot of these models have used reinforcement learning, and there are arguments that that's really not the best way to do it. Um,
Hmm.
there are better ways to do it other than sort of continual and I think DeepSeek used reinforcement learning, I think. And that, so anyway, it's there's a lot going on there, and it'll be years before it really starts to shake out. In the
but then
meantime,
there's also some people talking about learning with no data,
hmm,
the new absolute zero models,
yeah,
which I don't understand either. But
is that not zero shot?
no, it's. I just posted a link to a video called "New Absolute Zero Model Learns with No Data."
Oh, yeah.
But almost daily, I run into these videos on YouTube that are way over my head, and
I'll have to check it out.
well, I think we're about done for today. It's been a mind-bending discussion
Thank you.
in terms
Good
of.
stuff.
So, thank you all. I'll be here on
Thanks,
Thursday.
Jim. Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Find some people to bring with you.
Try to
Well,
continue to do that.
I'll do my best to be here.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Take care.
But Thursday's at 5 o'clock and not 11. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.